Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Let's come to Africa. Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir has been transferred to Koba maximum security prison, where many dissidents were detained and executed by his regime. That's life, isn't it? AUPSD, African Union's Peace and Security Council, has given Sudan's military junta a 15-day ultimatum to transfer power to civilian-led political authority. They tend to be extremely ineffective in these situations. Sudan's new de facto head, Abdel Fattah Burhan, praises the special relationship between Sudan and Saudi Arabia and the UAE yesterday as a joint delegation arrived in Khartoum and met with him at the military compound. This is Yusra al-Bajir. These meetings support reports that the military coup against Bashir was engineered by Saudi Arabia to put their man Burhan, who oversaw the deployment of Sudanese troops in Yemen, in charge. However, I think the direction of travel is certainly towards a civilian transitional government. Chinese wig sales to Africa are booming. In 2017, China exported $3.2 billion worth of hair products to Africa. Zimbabwe nearly doubles bread price as economic woes mount. Bread now costs 3.5 RTGS dollars a loaf, up from 180 on Monday, according to prices displayed by most shops visited by Reuters in the capital, Harare. Bread has now become a luxury. How many people can afford it at this rate? The government needs to do something before this gets out of hand. Year-on-year inflation raced to 66.8% in March, up from 59.39% the previous month, according to statistics agency Zimstats. The currency, I think, belongs in a range, the RTGS, of between 6 and 8, and this 2.5 starting point was really Hail Mary economics. What is clear to me is that Zimbabwe is at a tipping point moment. I recall a time when I was in President Suharto's office in Indonesia, and he was looking for an IMF package, and they demanded that he withdrew food subsidies, and he said, "I'll be gone in a week," and he was. And such a thing is not something you forget. Angola president criticizes the ex-leader for flying foreign airline. Surprised, deeply regrets that former President José Eduardo dos Santos chose to fly on a Portuguese airline on Tuesday instead of the national carrier. Officials tried all channels of dialogue to persuade dos Santos to use Angola's state-run carrier known as TAG, but the former head declined. The unheard-of public criticism of his predecessor shows that things aren't going well between the current and ex-president. They're showing that they distrust each other, and that's not good. Very hard-hitting report by Unomics, Business and Economics Limited, South Africa. South Africa's performance on a range of social, economic, and governance measures deteriorated more in the past 12 years than any other nation not at war. The decline is likely to continue as the country wrestles with the consequences of 9 years of worsening corruption and policy paralysis under President Jacob Zuma. The fragility of the economy may also limit the tenure of his successor Cyril Ramaphosa, who faces his first national election on May the 8th. There is the strongest likelihood of him being a one-term president, Claude Baysac, the head of Unomics. He is starting with a very weak economy, the weakest of any president since Mandela. He is also starting with a fairly weak hand from a political standpoint. An index of security, governance, prosperity, and welfare indicators show South Africa slumped to 88th out of 178 nations in 2018 from 31st in 2006. South Africa's decline in ranking has only been superseded by conflict-driven countries such as Mali, Ukraine, and Venezuela. And its peers now include Colombia, Jamaica, Latvia, and the Philippines, compared with Portugal and Slovenia in 2008. Economic policy serves narrow interests, thus generating insufficient and unfairly allocated growth. Populism rather than developmentalism is an easy temptation, with the economy a tug of war between mutually distrustful groups. The developmental state has failed. South Africa is now a fragile state, expected to continue to weaken. South African all shares having a good year so far. That's up 11.69% year to date. Dollar Rand last at 13.97. Bid up because of the Chinese data, but it's a sell below 14. Egypt's parliament on Tuesday overwhelmingly approved a constitutional amendment that would allow President al-Sisi to remain in office through 2030, a decision widely seen as inevitable from the day it was floated. I disagree with President al-Sisi on many things, including his incarceration strategy, but he made bold moves when it came to the economy. Devalued the currency early, took a brutal punch in the solar plexus, and is now reaping the dividend from its bolder economic policy. He's delivering growth. Growth this year will be above 5%, comfortably in excess of the population rate. This is a chart of the Egyptian pound. You remember I was bullish about it when it got devalued, and I think it's still got room to the upside. EGX30, best performing market in Africa, up 14.86%. The World Bank, this is a tweet from Razia Khan, speaking on Nigeria. In 1993, in 10 Nigerians had access to piped water. By 2015, this was less than 1 in 10. March, when I was writing about the election, I said the stock market is not enamored with the idea of more Baba go slow economics and slumped on the news. I referenced Margaret Thatcher, there is no way you can buck the market. Baba go slow voodoo level FX economics. Since President Buhari came to power in May 2015, Nigeria's stock market has fallen more than any other in the world, dropping 50% in dollar terms. And then I like this quote from Ben Okri: "We dream of a new politics. We dream of a new politics that will renew the world under their weary, suspicious gaze. There's always a new way, a better way that's not been tried before." Look at this. This is Nigeria's revenue crisis from Amaka Anku. Nigerian all shares down 5.36% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange down 4.13% this year.